Hello and welcome to Asia Newsweek. I'm Yvonne Yong. For the next half hour, I'll take you through the top stories in the region and go beyond the headlines for a deeper look at what's happening in Asia. Our top story: Indonesia's president has been forced into a major backdown, dropping controversial plans to change electoral laws after the biggest protests the country has seen in years. Protests broke out in several major cities, including outside Parliament building in Jakarta, from where our Indonesia correspondent Bill Birtles reports.
This is the scene just outside Indonesia's National Parliament. Just a few moments ago, we heard riot police firing tear gas further up the road. Just about 10 minutes ago, they were coming through this area, firing tear gas and flares, trying to clear the remaining protesters. Now, the numbers after sunset are lower than the tens of thousands who took to the streets outside the Parliament earlier in the day. This echoed other large protests we saw in cities across Java. These definitely are the biggest demonstrations we've seen in Indonesia for years. The protesters are furious at President Joko Widodo and his parliamentary allies. They claim the president is trying to abuse his power in order to help get his youngest son elected into politics. Now, 29-year-old Kaesang Pangarap is just short of the minimum age limit of 30 to run for a position at the upcoming regional elections. Allies of President Joko Widodo sought to challenge that at the Independent Constitutional Court, but a couple of days ago the court slapped them down and said that age limit must remain in place. What's really angered so many people here is that allies in the Parliament of the President then spent the last 2 days trying to revise and rewrite Indonesian electoral law to ignore and circumvent that independent court decision. That's why we saw tens of thousands of people out here earlier before the police started using tear gas. But in a late night backdown, parliamentary allies of the president have said that they will no longer continue trying to revise and rewrite those election laws. They will respect the Constitutional Court's decision. So for that reason, police behind me are now packing up. That should, you would think, quell the unrest here in Indonesia, at least in the short term. But this issue has really flared up because it fits into a broader perception here that in his final months in office, President Joko Widodo has been bending the rules and doing whatever he can to create a political dynasty for his family once he's gone from office.
Bill Birtles there. Well, for more on this, I'm joined by reporter Hellena Souisa from ABC's Indonesian team. Now, Hellena, Parliament has backed down and it says it won't go ahead with these changes to the electoral laws. Is this enough to satisfy the people on the street and citizens?
Yeah, Yvonne, I spoke with some protesters on Thursday night and they said they're still cautious and very afraid that something bad will happen because the decision from the parliament really was not based on the people's aspiration. It's not like they said, oh, we listened to you guys and now we turn back down the decision, but it's because just simply they did not meet the quorum. So in order to form a plenary meeting to pass the bill, we have to meet the number of 50% of attendance plus one. And they did not meet that. So people quite worried and they think something bad will happen. Maybe they're going to form another meeting later on, something like that, because of what's been happening for the last 10 years when Jokowi and his allies in the parliament tried to bend the rules and the laws. So it's not easy to satisfy people in Indonesia nowadays, Yvonne.
Well, I guess they're all wondering what this all means for democracy in the country. And I'm also interested in what effect this has on Jokowi's legacy as he leaves office.
Yeah, after what happened this week, I think now Indonesians, based on the interview I did this week at least, they said they're in a full alert mode in terms of democracy right now because they said they don't want to go back to the era of Suharto when after gaining the democracy in 1998, they're afraid that Jokowi has led them to another era, almost authoritarian mode, if they don't fight and they don't guard the political process under his administration until the new elect president will be sworn in later on October. But we also know that the new president also has his own track record.
Really interesting to get your thoughts. Thanks, Hellena.
Thank you for having me, Yvonne.
To India now, where protests over sexual violence against women continue. Internet services were cut and schools closed in a town near Mumbai after chaotic protests demanding justice over the alleged sexual abuse of 2 young girls. The scenes were similar to those of protests that have erupted across India over the rape and murder of a trainee doctor in Kolkata.
Stopping trains in their tracks, thousands swarm a railway line, protesting the alleged sexual abuse of 2 4-year-old girls in India. But the demonstration's disruption doesn't last long before police step in. But the protesters' anger over the alleged sexual abuse by a school cleaner outweighs the authorities' force.
The incident is extremely unfortunate. The class teacher, principal and assistant have been suspended.
The case is set for a fast-tracked court hearing and adds to the unrest continuing over the rape and murder of a trainee doctor in Kolkata while she was at work. The Supreme Court announcing a hospital safety task force on Tuesday.
We want them to make us recommendations in regard to the modalities to be followed across India, ensuring safety at the workplace first and foremost.
The attack happened during the doctor's shift earlier this month and sparked national outrage. Medics have walked off the job, joined by thousands in the community, calling for justice. We want justice! Greater safety for women and better protection at hospitals.
We are just scared to enter the department because if the security is same like the before, then anyone can be attacked.
Doctors who had refused to see non-emergency patients in protest have been asked to go back to work, but some say the task force that is expected to consider sweeping safety reforms is not enough.
We don't have a final.
We are still here because the law is not here yet and there is no conclusion.
A police volunteer has been arrested over the crime. The investigation now sitting with the federal police. The Supreme Court also ordering a paramilitary force to be deployed at the hospital. Sarah Jane Bell, ABC News.
In Thailand, there are calls for a parliamentary inquiry into an MP's behaviour after he was filmed hitting a journalist on the head. A reporter for Thai PBS was asking veteran politician and former army chief Prawit Wongsuwon about the new Prime Minister, Paetongtarn Shinawatra, only to be pushed away and slapped. Here's what happened. Well, a party spokesperson says Mr Prawit knew the journalist well and was teasing her as someone who he is close to and has apologised. For more on this, Dr Aim Sinpang, Associate Professor in Southeast Asian Politics, joins me now. Now, Dr Aim, can you tell us a little bit more about Prawit Wongsuwon and who he is and what is his reputation in Thai politics?
He's an old guard, part of the a group of politicians, older male, has been around a long time, has a military background. So in some ways, his whole narrative of, I was just teasing, the way he was talking about is this, someone from an older generation is teasing his own niece or someone much younger, and that it was all a joke and it looked worse than it seemed. And I think it's important to point out that the incident was widely reported in the Thai media, not using the word slap per se, but using the word, crunching up her hair. So it had like a much milder connotation to it than what you would have heard in English reporting.
What has the reaction been to this footage?
People were outraged, but not as much as we would have expected. In fact, if you look on social media, particularly TikTok with the videos, I think there were more people commenting about how we should be done with these old-timer politicians already, not necessarily about just the incident. And there hasn't been a lot of campaigns online to actually rally against him in a big way. And I think part of the problem is Thailand has had a whole week or 2 weeks of just daily political drama, that this was just one of the things that happened in the past 2 weeks, and it's not even the biggest thing.
Well, cases such as this really shine the spotlight on workplace safety for women in the country. Do you think it's likely to lead to any change at all?
I think journalists, particularly female journalists in Southeast Asia in particular, are not already operating in a very safe environment. But unfortunately, I don't think this as a standalone incident would lead to any kind of change. It might be part of a broader conversation about harassment in general. But, we now have a female prime minister. She actually came to power promising issues relating to betterment of gender equity as well as gender rights. But she's been quite silent about the incident. So I don't expect to see any really thing materialize from this.
Thank you for talking to us, Dr Aim Sinpang.
Welcome.
China and the Philippines are blaming each other over collisions in the disputed South China Sea. The Philippines says 2 of its Coast Guard vessels were damaged by Chinese Coast Guard ships in the early hours of Monday morning. Manila says its crews were heading to replenish troops on 2 islands it occupies, but encountered aggressive moves from Chinese ships. The Chinese Coast Guard posted a short video of the incident, saying the Philippines boats ignored repeated warnings and deliberately collided with a Chinese vessel. This latest escalation comes after a provisional agreement that was supposed to cool tensions. Monsoon rain causing floods has proven deadly and left hundreds of thousands of people stranded in India and Bangladesh. At least 11 people were killed when floods and mudslides ravaged India's northeast. Another 4 died in rivers along the India-Bangladesh border. In Bangladesh's southeast, power, public transport and roads have been cut, leaving the region isolated from the rest of the country. In Indonesia, social media platforms such as TikTok and Instagram are being used to advertise boyfriends and girlfriends available for hire. The relationships on offer aren't physical. Some young Indonesians are simply willing to pay just to talk to a peer, with loneliness on the rise.
These are rent-a-partner services, and they get hundreds of orders every week from customers looking for someone to text or call or receive selfies and voice notes from. Some meet in person to go shopping, watch a movie, or go to a cafe together. It always stays G-rated.
Kalau misalkan ada yang ngajak ke rumah atau ke hotel, itu kita udah tolak dari awal.
It's not quite the same as dating.
Bukan pacar yang seperti di real life ya, yang berantem-berantem gitu, yang drama-drama, enggak gitu. Jadi untuk doi-doinya di sini juga aku udah training supaya mereka bisa berperilaku ramah.
Professionalism is key to the job.
Kita harus bisa ngatur mood kita supaya kita kayak nggak bad mood. Kita nggak boleh bad mood dalam hal apapun.
For some who take up this line of work, it's not compromising their personal relationships. Justin has a girlfriend.
Aku udah kasih tahu sebelum aku pacaran tuh aku udah kasih tahu aku kerja di rental gini. Tapi ini cuma rental doang, nggak serius gitu. Jadi aku cuma ngelayanin talent doang, tapi aku dibayar.
It's not the first time the phenomenon has emerged. Companies started offering rent-a-partner services in Japan in the early 2000s. That same concept is now gaining popularity with a new generation in Indonesia with the help of social media. And it coincides with survey data that reveals loneliness as the second largest factor contributing to mental health problems in the country.
Banyak loh gitu, nyumbang angkanya lumayan besar 46% gitu, berarti kan banyak banget ya.
While renting a partner might seem like a quick fix, it comes with a warning.
Jadi daripada kita membuang waktu, tenaga, biaya juga untuk sewa pacar ini gitu ya, orang yang actually stranger gitu kan, kita nggak tahu dia siapa.
Health professionals in Indonesia are encouraging those struggling with loneliness to seek help rather than find comfort in what they say is a short-term solution. Rafa Atala, ABC News.
As China's economy struggles, young people are increasingly turning to social media to vent their frustration over having to work long hours for less pay amid a struggling economy. Some millennials and Gen Zs are posting about their plans to quit the corporate culture and travel without any backup plans. East Asia correspondent Kathleen Calderwood has more.
Chen Zijun is learning how to put up a fight. But not that long ago, she had no fight left.
I felt drained. I kept on delivering. I didn't have time to rest or learn something new. This type of work and life is not what I want, so I chose to quit.
Zijun is part of a group of young people choosing to opt out of China's relentless work culture. She decided to naked quit, meaning she left her job without a backup plan in place. And she's been documenting that journey online.
Still, there are lots of people who choose naked quitting. If the situation is not improved, naked quitting will only become more popular.
Of course, the young people would feel burnout. Most of their awake hours are just work with limited material return.
On the back of the pandemic, China's economic growth has slowed amid an ongoing real estate crisis and high youth unemployment. At the same time, a record number of young people are graduating from university into a competitive market.
There's this new phenomenon they call work-life integration. And just in a way, forget about your personal life. Every aspect is permeated by workplace culture.
It's hard to know exactly how many young people are opting out of the rat race, but a survey by a Chinese social media app found that around 70% of young respondents weren't afraid of quitting without another job lined up.
However, this path is only really available to those who can afford it.
If one is from a not well-off family, then it's simply not possible to disengage. You have to take the best job. It might be below the job you want, but you take what job you can get.
For now, Zijun is trying to figure out what matters to her most.
Through Muay Thai, I'm exercising every day to keep myself in a good headspace, so I can make a better decision for my next step.
A personal battle anyone can relate to. Kathleen Calderwood, ABC News.
And that's all we have time for. I'll see you next week. Bye for now.